And it's only Kingfisher come up next.
Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of Waverley's Audit and Risk Committee. I'm Councillor Julian Spence. I'm chair of this committee. It is obviously being broadcast live. If for any reason the broadcast goes down, we will take a brief adjournment, but hopefully that won't happen. I will shortly just ask the officers, both present in the room and on the screen, just to introduce yourselves. And I would ask the members present, please, to keep their questions succinct and to the point. All questions are obviously welcome, and that's not meant to deter questions, but let's keep them succinct, please. So thank you very much. So if I quickly just go through the room here.
Neil Pittman, head of the Southern Internal Audit Partnership.
Thank you. Luke.
Luke Harvey, Joint Assistant Director for Strategy and Corporate Services.
Thank you.
Hello, Philil Anakoy, Head of Finance, both Guildford and Waverley, looking after the business partnering audit functions.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, Deborah Davies, Joint Head of Governance.
Thank you. And obviously
Kimberly Soam.
And on screen, I think I see Joe.
Hi, I'm Jo Knight. I'm the Strategic Director for Finance Resources and your Section 151. And just to apologise for not actually being in the room today, I'm away on a course.
That's understandable. Who have I got next? Adi?
Good evening all. I'm Ade Oyerinde and I'm the external auditor with Grant Thornton.
Thank you. And I think finally I see Catherine.
Good evening. Hi, I'm Catherine Fitzgerald. I'm the new Joint Strategy, Policy and Insight Manager.
Thank you. Thank you all. With that, we will commence the meeting proper. Kimberly, do we have apologies for absence?
Yes, we have apologies from Councillor Gale and Councillor Higgins.
Thank you. We then turn to agenda item 2 to confirm the minutes of the meeting that we held on the 28th of January. Just before we do that, I would just like to mention there are 2 or 3 action points on there. One was the cybersecurity briefing, which unfortunately we were going to have just before this meeting, but it's postponed, and I think it's now being held on the 24th of March. Unfortunately, I will be away, but Councillor Higgins is graciously will chair that. So
it's virtual, isn't it?
It will be virtual.
Yeah.
It's virtual. So yes. I hope you can all join that. The second one was on recruitment and retention. Claire Garcia is going to attend the June meeting with an update and to answer questions. That arose from one of the risk register review questions. And the final item was we had the issue that we talked about the water safety issues, and officers were asked to give a quarterly update or report back on a quarterly basis. Unfortunately, the timings of these meetings don't really fit nicely with that. Annalisa Howson has written to me. She's asking that we can share with us by email an update at the end of April. In the meantime, the Landlord Advisory Board met at the end of last month. They also discussed this, so we can look, members can look at the minutes of that. I think that is a realistic, rather than having a report that's not going to say very much. I hope members will find that acceptable. With that, did anyone have any comments on the meeting minutes, or can I take those as approved?
One small item, if I may, Chair.
Councillor Davison.
When was the report submitted to council?
Which,
report?
Minutes.
The minutes of the meeting, I don't think,
They haven't been submitted.
I
or-
don't think they've been submitted
Ah,
yet.
so you're waiting expectantly to put in the date.
Yes.
I thought the minutes weren't reported to the minutes for council.
No, I thought normally.
It used to be.
The
It used to be.
audit minutes do go to full
Yeah.
council.
Oh, do they? Okay.
Yes.
Oh,
but obviously they can't be submitted until we have.
No.
Wait.
oh, no,
Approved.
no.
Oh, right, so I'm ahead of the game, I have to apologise.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Murray, did you have a
No,
question?
no.
So can I take the minutes as approved?
Indeed.
Indeed.
Thank you very much. We'll then come to disclosure of interest. Does any member present have any disclosure? Thank you. Questions from members of the public?
None received, Chair.
None received. Questions from members?
None received.
Thank you. Which takes us to item 6, which is our opportunity to consider potential governance issues for the annual governance statement. As I said, this is an annual statement which goes into our report and accounts. We normally formally approve it in September, but through the year we have the opportunity to give recommendations or suggestions as to issues and other matters that should be on that, included within that governance statement. Now I believe I've got Councillor Hyman registered to speak on this. Councillor Hyman? Welcome.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much indeed, Chairman. Well, I'm quite sure that these are issues which the other committee members have in mind, but as I'm speaking, first of all, I'm sorry if I take the thunder or whatever, but I'd ask that the committee members put them forward as issues which need to be addressed for the last and current financial year. So we're looking at since last April. I'm correcting that, aren't I? First of all, there was the Crinkles grounds maintenance contract brought in house. That started off in, I think, March, but was rescinded. The decision was rescinded and it was referred back and came back to us later within this year. There was an extra £1 million that above what was normally being spent that was at stake. That has started. It's had a very bumpy start. The problems which we foresaw are all coming to pass. In respect of decision making and implementation, there have been considerable problems, and we've now got definitely lacking in the machinery, staff, and skill set in respect of this. So it's something which definitely needs looking at. That's the in-house grounds maintenance and the decision making that went into it. The 69 High Street, Godalming, the appropriation at double the land value. This is something which is ongoing, and I'm responding to officers' response at the moment. It's something which needs correcting. The response I got was rather inappropriate. There is the possible then leading from that the revision of the commercial element, or the impact on the commercial element that would ensue. This is a matter of the decision making, also the alteration to the motion put to the council on the 3rd last week. The value not being stated, the discussion not being allowed. There are also possible budget implications as well, and rent setting implications as well that might should properly be revisited. So that's a huge issue which really has got to be looked at by the external auditor. So Addy, and I will be in touch with him. There's also the EPR, which is the recycling issue, where we've received £4.4 million for the last financial year and the coming financial year. from effectively the government. It's being paid for by the producers, and this is effectively paying for part of the recycling collection service, which our residents are already paying for. And this was tried to be raised as part of the budget, but it was refused. Accordingly, we could have charged less council tax. It looks like that money is either going to be spent. Some of it, which was allocated last year, cannot be spent on what it was allocated for because it's not allowed according to the rules. That needs to be looked at. That could cost us. It looks like the money's just being put aside to give it away to Woking in the end. I don't know. But we need to look at that and make sure that EPR, extended producer responsibility, is done properly, and there may be budget implications from that. Householder SIL, I'm sure someone's going to raise that one, because that one was definitely within this year and it looks like it's being kicked into the long grass forever till the day that Waverley no longer exists, and that's totally unacceptable. I won't go any further into that. There's divesting of Careline, which was at the executive meeting last night. Everything exempt, and there was a last minute amendment to that, which the Overview and Scrutiny Committee didn't get to look at or don't know about. I don't know how important that is, but it certainly needs to be on the list. And there's certainly the age-old ones, which I've raised year after year, of air quality compliance and habitats compliance. Certainly the Farnham Park Sink Fund, the investment fund, for all of the millions of pounds that's been taking off of developers for SANGs, and the issue of habitats compliance, where the courts have determined that the approach taken by Waverley and Natural England is not lawful. And this is multi-millions of pounds that we're talking about, and it's a fraud issue. So these issues, Crinkles High Street, EPR, Householder SIL, divesting of Careline, and habitats and air quality compliance should all be on the radar for the AGS. Thank you very much indeed, Chairman. I hope members will take that forward.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Hyman.
Thank you, Jerry.
I thank you for those, and this is exactly the forum to be raising those sort of concerns, so that we can then either flag them so that they can then be addressed if appropriate. So thank you. Members, Councillor Murray.
Thank you. So Councillor Hyman's brought these things to the table. How do we decide as a committee whether we think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 items he's brought forward? Do we as committee discuss each of these which he's put forward, and any other ones which we may want to put forward, and what happens to them? I suppose probably Deborah would know. What happens to them? Do they go on a list? They are discussed at some other venue or some other thing? What happens with it? I'm sorry.
So through you, Chair. So they are indeed discussed. So we have a monthly group that discusses the annual government statement
Of officers.
And I certainly collect things as I go through. So things like Crinkles.
Yeah, the grounds maintenance.
That's already on the list.
Okay, cool.
So all those types of things we collect up.
Okay.
So and as officers, we would look at those to see if there have been governance failings, what we do about it, and how the governance has worked.
Okay.
And that then gets translated into the annual governance statement.
I see.
Although we are hoping for this year to have a local code of corporate governance as well. So either way, members will see those ones that officers feel should be included. Okay. As you did last year. Yeah. And clearly, when we come to you with the draft governance statement, if we haven't included things. I see. You're entitled to say to us, well, we told you we thought X was a problem. Why did you not put it in? And we will give you that answer. Okay. But obviously, the ones that Councillor Hyman has raised, I will take away for next month's meeting. Okay. And they will go on the list, and we will have that debate as officers about how do we include them? Do we need to include them? Okay. And what, if we need to include them, what are we doing to remediate them?
Okay, well, that's clear. Sorry, just a follow up. So, Chair, do we as a committee discuss any of these, or does Deborah just take these away and say thank you very much, Councillor Hyman, we've got them on the list and we'll discuss it, or do we as a
We
As
can,
an
I
audit
think,
risk
give
committee.
further pointers to the officers as to
Okay.
why we think they should be on this. Remember, this is about governance and the effectiveness of
Because I've not
as
seen,
opposed to other things.
I don't think I was on this committee when this came up as an agenda item last time, so I'm just, I'm new
Provide
to
you with
this.
the current AGS. So
I'm
that
sorry?
I can provide you with the cover.
What's on it already?
The statement that was in September, so
Yeah.
you can just
Okay.
see.
That would be good, because then at least I can, well, they might, there's 7, which Council was given 7, there could be 6 of them already on it. As you said, the grounds maintenance one is something you're considering looking at already, so they could already be on there, so I suppose that we would, I did think as part of that agenda point number 6, the current one, if you like, or the last one would have been better, so we could have had a look. I mean, I would have.
I did ask for a copy of it, but I didn't get it.
It would have been quite good to me to see that list, so I can see what's already on there.
It's in the annual report.
Yeah.
So you can look at it, but just
I will,
give
yeah.
everyone one of the headings in there is changes in governance in 24-25. So
correct.
Some of the things that Councillor Hyman was referring to, we there had whistleblowing was one of the things.
Yeah.
Other council events in the financial year.
Yeah.
And there we had things like local government reorganisation, collaboration with Guildford.
Yeah.
The grounds maintenance contract at that stage was mentioned, and so forth.
Okay.
So this is the time.
Okay. Thank you.
Following up actually from your concern. Would it be at all possible for us to see an updated governance statement? Because it's a working document through the year until we actually get signed off and published in autumn. But that's too late. It'd be nice if we could get a copy of following on from the meeting, which you're stressing will be next month.
Yes, we do have a monthly meeting, and we can bring to you a list of the areas that we are planning on covering.
Yes, but not only the areas that you're listed, but actually what you're actually going to change in the governance document, so that we can look at that ourselves before the next meeting, rather than as soon as possible. So what we've done previously, if I recall, Chair, is that we're open. You are open to suggestions for changing the governance report from members of the committee, which you can then circulate around to all the members so that they can chip in as well if they like. So it would be nice if we could have an updated version of that soonest.
We don't draft the report until the end of the year. What we do is we consider the issues so that we're ready. If you're asking me to come up with a draft report.
Well, I seem to recall from previous years that we actually do see draft reports as they're going through the year.
At the end of the year. I think we have seen a draft report in June. Correct, which is the end of the year is March.
Yeah.
So the draft, which should include the points that we've raised, and if they're not, the reasons why, that then gives us the chance to either sort of fine tune or edit any comments we have before September, when I would hope we're presented with a document that we are broadly comfortable with already.
Yeah, because it'd be nice to see the issues which have been raised by council, and maybe there may be other issues which committee members might want to raise. What mitigating action the council has taken to be included in the report, so that we're not just issuing risks or problems without some kind of adequate response from our executive and from our officers, because it's a governance issue which we're primarily concerned with.
Yes, Chair, I can confirm that in the work programme for the June meeting, we have annual governance statement, interim review.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
So I think if we can be sure that
Yes, it will be on your agenda.
with some of these agenda points
Yes.
that have been raised, and I think Councillor Murray earlier before the meeting mentioned the NPPF and the developments on that and local plan part 2. I think that's an important
part of
Policy.
how the government and
Yeah.
policy will it have a big impact on the.
Yeah.
on the
And
council.
clearly, any updates on local government,
Yeah.
which should be the.
But just thinking, as I say, I'm new to this, how this, we're not going to be expecting a running commentary. One of the things, I mean, obviously you're going to be discussing this with officers and saying, well, was there a government breach, or was there a failure in something, and how did we fix it, and how we're going to go back, or there's the decisions to be made and all this kind of stuff. But you will be doing that, and then you're reporting to the executive or the portfolio holder or these persons or the monitoring officer, those kind of things. So they will be dealing with it, and then you at the end, in June, you will come back and say, okay, well, these are the ones we've looked at, and this is where we are with them, and that kind of thing. But you're not going to be having a running commentary to every meeting as to where these things are being discussed, right?
That's absolutely correct.
That's as I understand
we
it.
will do the global annual governance statement. This is, so if we use the Hackles as an example, you know, we would say where we think we went wrong in terms of governance and what we have done to make sure that doesn't happen in the future.
All right, yeah. Good.
I think it would be very helpful, Kimberly, if you could circulate the existing.
That'd be
I
good.
will
Yeah,
indeed.
please do.
To all members,
Yes, I will.
Thanks, Kim.
so that they can
Yeah,
get.
Yeah. I don't think I was on this committee last September, so it's the first time
I agree, to discuss it without knowing what we've had before.
Yeah,
It's.
I've got an idea probably, but
So I will circulate that tomorrow morning.
thanks, Kim. Yeah, no problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Members, any other potential governance issues? Councillor Barker.
Can I check, please, what our role as an audit and risk committee is with regards to 69 High Street? Because, you know, when I hear Councillor Hyman saying, you know, we're currently spending sort of double the land value, and I know that, you know, we could buy 24 flats roughly instead of the 13 that we're currently getting, which is singularly bad value for money. And so it seems to me there are two issues that could touch our committee, and I just want to understand what our role is. So first of all, audit, you know, we are being profligate at the moment, spending way over market and actually not getting value for the taxpayer and not getting enough houses. That's one thing. But then secondly, in terms of governance, we've all got a fiduciary duty to ensure best value, which we patently don't have on this property. So that's a breach of governance. And does that fall under audit and risk?
Councillor Davis.
But I think we need to be careful here, if I may say so, Zoe, that we don't take on the role of overview and scrutiny. And we don't take over the responsibility of the full council. We're here to ensure that the proper governance processes have been implemented and followed. We may not like the decisions which the process has come up with as an endpoint, but that's as long as from our audit perspective, we've followed the correct process and the guidance and policies which are associated with that. That's it. We're not here to, in my mind, to go into a big discussion about value for money, or whether it's the right decision or the wrong decision. We're here to ensure that the proper governance processes have been followed through. You and I are both on the ONS committee. It's been raised there. They've made their comments. They can forward it through. Whether the full council buys into it or not.
And there was a 3 hour.
There was a lot of debate around it, but it's
debate about
it came to a specific conclusion which the council accepted, and that's as far as we can go.
Yeah, okay, so that's your statement. What I'm asking is, in a context where we clearly, and I think unquestionably, don't have good value for money, what is our role when it comes to governance when our fiduciary duty is not being met?
Councillor Barker, that's first, I think you should be cautious about the comments about saying
the wording
the wording of saying it doesn't have value for money. what I see it is that we have internal and we have external auditors. They are, one of their things they're tasked is looking for value for money. And part of this committee is maybe highlighting that that's something that they should perhaps look at. But it's not for us, I believe, to make the judgment that you have just made. I think that's you know, for the professionals, if you like.
Okay, so how do we go about that? How do we ask our auditors to look at it?
Well, later on, we are having an agenda item talking about the upcoming Grant Thornton review, and that includes a value for money considerations.
And obviously, Grant Thornton have the copy of the annual governance statement as well.
And are here and will be listening
and are copied into all our minutes. So they pick up issues that the committee have raised.
Okay.
I'll just say one thing on it, Zoe, is that Councillor Hyman brought up a sort of legal constitutional challenge to the monitoring officer about the decision to bring a late motion and whether that was part of the constitution and whether it broke the text. So I know the monitoring officer has written back to Councillor Hyman because she's copied me in on it, and there's some discussion backwards and forwards about that element of it, but that's not about the decision which Zoe was talking about. They're talking about the process, and that is the government's process of how that decision about transferring the money or bringing the late motion about the HRA and the general fund. I think that was what Councillor Hyman has brought in to have a look at from a government's perspective. Is that correct, Deborah? You're aware of that element?
I'm sorry, I'm not aware of that.
Okay, but I think that's where Councillor Hyman is talking about specifically.
Okay. So can I just ask Deborah, so just epistemically here, if the fiduciary duty is not met, what is our governance duty in this committee?
So your duty as a committee is to ensure that the relevant controls are in place across the council.
Yeah.
So do we have
part
control?
of that is you have an external auditor.
Yeah.
That if you feel that the council does not have suitable controls around best value, you can raise that with the external auditor, who in any event in their external audit will give a view to whether the best value duty has been met or not.
Thank you. Thank you. Hearing no further things, I think we should move on to agenda item 7, which is the fraud investigation.
Yeah.
Is Jose online?
He's not, I'm afraid. So I'm not quite sure what's happening there. But obviously we can discuss.
I would hope all members have read his report. I think it's fairly straightforward. But did any members have any particular comments or questions on that? I noted indicative savings of 424,000 against what he puts as like an 80,000 to cost.
Yeah.
I think he continues, and that department continues to do a very valuable job for the council.
Yes.
But I opened it up to members if they else. That's the box.
So I just have 2 questions. I really like it. It's super clear. Can just looking at 2 columns, there's one which says still under investigation, and the next one which says positive outcomes, including previous year's cases. And then if we look at the trend for the still under investigation cases, they've gone from sort of an average of 15 to 30, so doubled. So the rate of cases that are under investigation has doubled, and I just sort of would like to ask what has brought that about. Is it because we're understaffed or what? And then the second bit there, conversely, the average number of cases with positive outcomes was around, I don't know, well, several years ago it was sort of 30, and now and then sort of average is around 12, but this year's only at 6. And so that's 2 sort of markers, if you like, that seem to be going in the wrong direction?
Yeah, I think that's one we should probably ask Jose to, maybe with an email, if he could give us reasons. I would make the observation that this report is not for the full financial year. So it's only April to December, so it's what, 3/4 of 25, 26. So it's not quite a comparison to the 6. Is only for 3/4 of the year, so it may change. But I think Jose is best placed to.
I will pass those
to
questions
answer
on
those
to
questions.
Jose, and then I will circulate the responses to the committee.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So could I ask, with a caveat on that explanation, that the committee please note that report?
Noted.
Yes.
Very good.
Thank you. This takes us to item 8, which is the review of the strategic risk register. And I think I've got Luke and I've got Catherine's names on here. I'm conscious that we had quite a good and lengthy discussion on the register last quarter, but I believe there are various updates. So would one of you like to just briefly lead us through the report?
Sure. So good evening, Chair and members of the committee. So I'm pleased today to present the Q3 update for the Strategic Risk Register, and that covers September to December 2025. The report provides an overview of our current strategic risks during this time period, along with some updated mitigations, actions and risk scores. Across the 13 strategic risks identified, 5 remain red, 7 are amber and 1 is yellow. However, the direction of travel is stable across all risks, and encouragingly, none have worsened. It's worth noting that SR2 for financial sustainability risk has actually been downgraded from red to amber. So that's a key change from the previous quarter, and that's following the agreement of a balanced 2-year budget. Some other key updates this quarter include changes to the local government reorganisation risk, the addition of a new sub-risk to capture transition-related instability around a local government reorganisation, and updates to risk related to the local plan, climate change and cyber security. The operational risk register remains unchanged. So yeah, I just invite the committee and Chair to kind of note these updates and then offer any comments or observations. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Members, comments, questions? Councillor Murray.
Hi, Catherine, thank you. Can you just tell me the difference between local government reorganisation SR2 and local government instability? So why have you separated that separately? And why, and what does it mean? I'm not understanding, why is it not just one thing? And why have you decided to make a separate one about instability during the transition? Is that for next year after the election and then the year after that, or is it? I'm not 100% sure. If you could just clarify why you've done that.
So yeah, I can provide some insights, and then I can always bring in Luke as well if he has anything else to add. So, so in terms of instability during a transition, this is more specifically relating to transitioning to the shadow authority. So, so that's, I think there was a feeling amongst kind of governance colleagues in particular that actually as members and officers take up new roles in the new shadow authority or step down and adjust their focus, that there's a risk of some reduced engagement with existing responsibilities. So that is slightly different to the local government reorganisation, which is more focused on kind of how it's going to affect the kind of entire organisation and specific services as well. So so yeah, I think that was kind of the idea around it, was that it was something that we felt was relevant to pull out. But yeah, I'll hand over to Luke if he has anything else to add.
So we're going to just understand it. It's mainly about staffing and how it affects the people and the running of Waverley Council, whereas the LGR element is about bigger themes about how what the government might change or how it impacts the joining of the of making the new West Surrey. Whereas this is more focused on how it impacts at the local level. This is more about how it impacts at a new West Surrey level, if I'm reading it correctly.
I think that's roughly kind of what we're interpreting it as. Essentially, yeah. But yeah, Luke, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, thank you, Catherine. Yeah, thank you, Councillor Hyde, for your question. Yeah, you're quite right. We were quite keen to split these out as there are two. The impact horizons of them are quite distinct. So, number 2 focuses on potential impacts on staff morale, and so this creates high levels of uncertainty. Given the concerns that officers and members are concerned around turnover, etc., but also the sheer amount of pressure that's being put on staff, working in the implementation team, keeping the show on the road. And indeed, there's an awful lot going on through committees, as I'm sure you're aware. It's been a particularly busy time with the budget, etc. as well. 2.1 is quite, 2B is quite, is quite governance heavy in that sense. So it's around, so we've had the structural changes orders now cleared Parliament, it's now in effect. Best value duty, etc. The pendulum beginning to start shifting and focus towards the new council. We've got joint committees running, we've got elections coming up. So it's an awful busy time when it comes to those core governance matters that colleagues, not just in Waverley, but also at Guildford and other districts and the county council are being pulled into. And what we've seen examples of LGR elsewhere, because we're learning from the sector as we go to, you've had Cumbria, Northamptonshire, recent good examples, is that there can be issues around keeping democratic processes running at the legacy or the preceding authorities. So ensuring quorum, for instance, of meetings and then that kind of stuff. So the hence why it's on here now. So it's rated as yellow. So it's not high at the moment, but we wanted to raise a flag, but it's something that we're obviously mindful of.
Okay, good. That's clear. Thank you.
Councillor Ealing.
Yeah, I think it's also a big unknown, isn't there, as to what the political composition of the new authority might be. It might lead to some instability in the conflicts with the constituent boroughs. It's a big unknown, isn't it?
Yes, I guess as an officer, I won't comment on the political side of things. You wouldn't expect me to do that. But yeah, I mean, it's a uniquely difficult position in the transitional period, because as you described, we've got the shadow authority will be operating, so shadow council executive. You may have seen the papers for the West Surrey Joint Committee were published last week on the County Council website, and there's a suggested calendar of meeting dates, so you'll be able to see them. The existing council's meetings as well. But yeah, there's a lot to do in quite a compressed time.
Can I just make one comment? I was thinking about it, and you actually just briefly touched on it, Luke, was that I don't know whether this is the last audit and risk meeting for this year, or do we have another one?
This financial year.
Sorry?
Next one will be June. So
okay, so this is the last one of this formal group. So I'm just concerned, and I'm sure certainly ONS and his planning and the other committees, is that we may struggle to find members to fill all those roles which you currently have on each committee, because we may lose some. We may get people will be at other meetings if they're elected to the new authority. So maybe there's a thought process, is that maybe we, instead of having to keep the what do we call fairness, the proportionality, political proportionality, that each committee reduces by 2, or you know what I mean. That's the number reduces by, so it's a smaller committee, instead of just having empty spaces and people can't turn up. Is that a thing which has happened before, and it's something you would consider? The minute there's 12 people on the planning committee, isn't it? Yeah. And there's, I don't know how many people on the ONS committee, how many members on the ONS committee and the joint one. So you've got these committees. Maybe you want to make them slightly smaller.
I think you have a point. I'm not sure this
is not the right place, but as Luke mentioned,
timing on that.
Sorry about that. But this is the last meeting of this one.
Councillor Davidson.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Following on from your point, if I may, as a digression before I go on to my real subject of question. If you're worried about members of existing Waverley Council disappearing, I don't see why they should be, because you can still have they continue to be a member as well as a member of the new unitary authority.
But they may be busy on the other.
Well, they may well be, but that's up to them to organise their time appropriately. but it can create great stress, as you point out, because their time may be somewhat absorbed elsewhere and trying to get the act together for the new unit.
Yeah.
Going back to my point I wanted to raise with regard to the strategic register, I think we may be, perhaps you could correct me, Catherine, the governance and charitable trust, should that be amber? Or is it really something which should be yellow? I can't in my mind see that as being such a huge risk to us as a organization. That's number one. So you may disagree with me and say, turn it into red. But the decision-making and governance, I really do worry about that as we move into the new environment with a unitary authority. I am concerned about decisions which either they make or we are making on their behalf, or making us the suggestions which we may be putting forward to the new unitary authority, whether they're being picked up and listened to. Is there going to be a clash, I think you alluded to, I'm sorry, between their thinking and our thinking? And I think this may lead to, linked to the instability which may be coming up in the future, but I do really worry that making and governance for our Waverley community, as it currently is very much at risk with the new unitary authority.
Councillor Davidson, I think to me the potential for conflicts between us as Waverley Council and the new council, and of course some of the members will be members of both, is potentially real, and I don't understand under the governance how that will pan out.
Yeah,
I think just one second, because Councillor Hyman brought it up slightly. He mentioned, "Oh, we're saving money, and all we're going to do is hand it over to Woking." So that was his flippant remark. But there is potential danger in that. That we're prioritising the future instead of prioritising what matters to residents at this minute. So there has to be a watching brief on that there is a strong element that Waverley is still, and the residents of Waverley is the number one thing we're here for, and we should not get over focused on what the new unitary is going to be, and that will be a really tightrope and a really walking balance. But I think it is a risk with all this, right?
I'm conscious, I think, Deborah, that the officers have put on various briefings for members. I think as we get closer and closer, the importance of those briefings becomes all more important.
Yeah. If I may just add to what you've just been saying, with a strategic risk, something may identify, and particularly if you start making it red, what are the mitigation action which we need to take to try and counter that risk? And I think, maybe this is because of the uncertainty of what the future has got for us, is it's going to be very difficult to do because it's, to a certain extent, out of our control. But even so, I still think that someone needs to think through what we can do to try and protect our residents from monetary grabbing, other councils or councils which are going to be doing things which are not right, but we have been doing correctly ourselves. So I'm not sure how you're going to tackle that, but I think we do need to have something about how we are going to mitigate against that.
Luke.
And happy to add some. Thank you for your questions and comments. Happy to add some colour to the response. I think so. It's an interesting one. As I mentioned in my previous answer, the structural changes order cleared Parliament this week. I think it was yesterday actually. And government have issued, the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Government have issued guidance on the interpretation of the structural changes order and what the decisions that can and can't be taken between now and vesting of the new councils. We're in the position now where we haven't had what's known as a Section 24 order. So Section 24, direction, is covered under the legislation that gives effect to reorganisation, and that will create an additional layer of decision making. As I mentioned, the best value duty the council has to the borough of Waverley and its residents and businesses will continue up to vesting day. But the context is being shifted now, and the government have made quite clear that context, we need to act in pursuance of the structural changes order. So it adds a layer of complexity there where perhaps wasn't one, but the best value duty still holds until Waverley ceases to exist. I believe that's correct from the governance perspective. We as officers are obviously keenly aware of that best value duty. That's we're working in that government, and it's almost like it's a mantra we subscribe to. And there is, as I mentioned, there's an awful lot going on. So our risk register is classed with the risks are defined in the context of our corporate objectives as an organisation, and those that are set by the members of this organisation. We've covered LGR, and you'll pick up in the description of the risk that is focused on the impact on the authority's objectives. Not everything is in our control, and we hadn't accounted for LGR when we set our corporate strategy and the last delivery plan. So it's quite a lot's happened in a very short space of time. But clearly we work in a highly regulated and legislative environment, and we have to follow the law, and that's the way that we work. Okay. So yes, we're keenly alive to the risks, and I suspect, as are the statutory officers, and the LGR programme itself, which is coordinated across the county with officers from county and districts, are keenly aware of that as well, because important decisions can't stop just because this is going on. You still need to get the business done, pick the bins up, make sure people have safe and compliant housing as well. So yeah, we're walking quite a tight road, but
well, I think that's tight for Lawrence, really, to my mind.
Can I bring Deborah in?
Yes, I could perhaps give some reassurance around the conflicts of interest part. So for members, once the elections are over, we will of course issue guidance across West Surrey to those members that are twin hatters, possibly triple hatters. We have some of those, and members are used to managing those conflicts themselves at the moment anyway. So so we anticipate that there really won't be much difference for members who are used to taking off one hat and putting on another. And as the mitigation says, we have enough deputies for the statutory officers. So there's a deputy section 151 officer, and there is also myself and Claire Beasley as deputy monitoring officers. So you can always have the assurance that if there is a conflict of interest, we have something within our roles where we segregate and we decide who is going to be the person that will represent the best interests of Waverley, who will represent Guildford's best interests, and we have that agreement between us of how we will split that up, so that you will have that advice in the same way you currently do, but without any potential conflict of interest, particularly if someone is giving advice to West Surrey at the time. So just like members are twin hatters, we're able to split our roles up.
Okay. Can I just ask one question then, because it raises something. So if you had the portfolio for finance here, and he or she was the portfolio for finance for the West Surrey unitary, would that not be a conflict of interest? And how would you be able to split that? And I suppose that makes the same for other portfolio holders at the new unitary. And if they are also holding that same post at their existing thing, which could well happen, I'm sure it probably will across the thing. How is there? There's a push me, pull me thing if they're trying, obviously, within that year while that's happening. So how does that happen? How does those portfolio holders separate their? I know how they separate it now, because if they're town or they're Surrey or anything, it doesn't happen as much as you think, but it could happen. But there you've actually got a live conflict, because within a year, it's all going to be one thing. Whereas, obviously, if you're a town or a Surrey or a council, you wouldn't have that, because they would always be separate. But now they're going to be. So I imagine that is going to be quite tricky if you are a portfolio holder for both in the same portfolio, right?
Yes.
And there's no rules about that? You can have it?
It will be tricky. And obviously the ultimate goal is that everyone has to make sure the transition to the new council is as good as it can be. Yeah. And that is what the order says.
Yeah.
So we have to balance that against members doing the best thing for Waverley, members that are sitting on West Surrey Council doing the best thing for that council whilst they sit, members on town and parish councils doing the best thing there. And we will have to issue clear guidance. And you're right, there may be some times when members come to us and say, actually, I feel I've got a conflict of interest. And we will have to manage that.
If they're voting for money or if they're voting for resources
Yes,
to be done it, and they are, you know, there's a slightly more of a closer relationship, which could be trickier, right?
Yes,
They're the
and
same
it's actually
portfolio.
about the public perception as
Correct.
well of
Yeah.
So I think we're obviously not going to conclude that.
No,
What
but
we
you know,
do is
these
to
things
highlight
are brought up as part
the
of that LGR process,
concerns
right?
that we have, which I think boils down to our residents are concerned, and we want to be able to give them the assurance that as Waverley we're doing the right thing. So I take great comfort from that and look forward to these briefings. Any other questions on the risk register?
Well, yellow for the climate, not for the charitable trust. I don't see that as having a huge impact on us, but Catherine, if you want to make it a bit more serious than Amber, fine, but I don't see it as being critical.
Oh, sorry, I see Jo has her hand up. Jo.
Thank you, Chairman. It was only to say that it was initially raised as a concern to officers, and that we would need to be sure that the processes that we were doing to work with these charities and trusts were robust. We have a plan in place, and we've seen some results have been very good so far. We'd like it to be green, not amber. We'd like it to fall off the risk register completely, but we're not there yet. I'm more than happy to sit down with any member of the committee and explain what we're doing.
Yellow.
You want it to be yes.
We hear you, Councillor Davidson.
No.
I would just like one observation on that. It does say that the audit of the council interests and chairs, trusts and companies will be undertaken by this committee. I think you probably mean will be maybe overseen by this committee rather than doing it ourselves. I had, sorry, Councillor Barker, that's you.
Thank you. Yes, so I wanted to check, so on the risk heat map, I don't know if you guys can see it up there. So it's the highly colour coded one. Yeah. Like 26, I think. Is it 26 or 60?
26 of the.
Okay, so that, it's a matrix with, red, amber, green. And I'd like to know what the purpose of it is. So yes, could someone tell me what the purpose of it is? That's not a stupid question. I am going to follow on from that. So the purpose of that, please.
Look, Catherine, could you?
Yeah, so it's a visual representation of score of the risk compared to the council's risk appetite.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So that's what I thought. So, and then my understanding from the subsequent pages are that, so we've got the gross, which is significant, so gross, residual and target. And gross is where we are pre-mitigation, residuals where we intend to be post-mitigation, and target is kind of a hallowed land that we'd like to get to. Is that right?
Yeah, so residual is where we're at now, and it will be the basis of the score.
Yes, correct. So gross is where it was, residual is where it is
now,
based on the mitigation.
That are in place, yeah.
Okay, so then can I then just check? So several of these, so like SR2, SR4, cybersecurity, and SR11 and OR3, those are post-mitigation still in the red. And I guess then, what is the purpose of this document? So to a certain extent, you could say, right, we've got a problem, we have mitigating factors, we still have a problem. You see what I mean? And then then what's our role? Is it just to say, okay, we still have a problem, or is it our role to say, okay, we need more mitigating factors? I think we still need more mitigating factors because we're still in the red. So what's our role in reviewing this?
Thank you, through you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor. It's a very good question. In the Council's risk management strategy, it makes clear, so the audit and risk committee's role is to take that to the broader holistic view. I think it came up in an earlier item, to have assurance around the effectiveness of the framework of risk management and control. So what you have here, risk registers are a key means for each to see, is our approach to risk at the authority, is it working as intended? You will often see risks scoring changes, they go up, they go down. But the framework that we have for risk management is standard really in local government and private sector insofar as we need to know what the risks are that we face, we need to design controls to prevent them from happening, and indeed mitigations to reduce the impact should they materialise. So the risk registers are one way that you have that view of risk at the authority. And there are several others, and every paper really that comes to this meeting will have an emphasis on risk. So it's helpful to, you can have a look at individual risks, and I think that's happened in the past. We've had offline briefings, and there was a paper brought on the back of an audit report to this meeting at the last time in January. So yes, your role is to have assurance that the controls and mitigations are operating as intended to bring the risk to a level that is tolerable. Bear in mind, we can't control everything either as well. So we can articulate a target which we would like to get to. Sometimes that may be over ambitious given circumstances, but doesn't prevent us from trying. I mean, there's an example that you teased out, which is a good example of this actually, the National Planning Policy Framework and the local plan, so SR4. This is one, and again, I usually make a policy of not commenting on planning, given my lack of professional background in planning. But this is an example whereby the landscape has significantly changed, and there is a new approach to plan making. Government has made quite clear, although relatively recently. So the council is required to develop planning quite short, very tight timescales, and we haven't had the full regs yet. Hence why, on your example, your question there around the gross and the residual are the same.
Yes.
It's because we are, in that respect, the service have flagged that this is potentially quite high risk. Until we have those regulations, we can't start making a local plan.
And so then, if I may, then our role is just to say, okay, we've still got a problem, or is our role to say we recommend that more mitigating factors are brought into play, or do we have any role here other than to observe this?
It's a difficult one for me to say, and perhaps Deborah might have a view around the constitutional side. Where I've seen it work quite well elsewhere is you can kind of a fusion of both, because what you're seeing here is a journey and a picture of risk across the authority. So hopefully what you'll see, and we've got direction of travel, we have comments on each risk, so you can see how things are changing, and that should hopefully give you assurance that officers have that oversight of risk. Risk registers, though, are one part of that.
Yeah.
And they're always here for obviously for internal audit, and that paints a really rich picture. We spoke about the annual governance statement just now. Our external auditors are on the call as well, and the whole value for money framework. So there are many levers at your disposal, as it were, when it comes to risk. But perhaps, Deborah, do you want to clarify why everything was said?
So I was thinking, I mean, it looks like in terms of the committee's role as well, you need to be looking at, are the actions that officers taking actually mitigating the risks? Is the risk profile of the organisation changing? You want to give it that type of view as well, so that you're seeing that the risk policy that we've set up is actually right and is actually working. And that's part of your role as the committee, to actually give it that more strategic view, to understand that what we're doing is the right thing in terms of our risk policy.
So where you see on planning, so SR4 and SR and OR3, that there has been no change between gross and residual, so 2020, 2020, is it our role to say, hey, we think we need more mitigation, because actually the mitigations that you've cited aren't changing the risk profile? Is that our role?
I agree, and part of our role is to make observations on what's presented to us. If we felt that that something was wrong or not being addressed, that we felt was a major risk, we can make the observation. But my understanding, correct me wrong, this is a risk register produced by the council So the management board look at this, the executive look at this, as opposed to being a register that we set. So we are reviewing what they set because we're reviewing the governance. That this is the key tool in the way that they govern the council, and we're looking at it saying that pretty good. Is the smell test the right one? Have they got the right things? Are there things that they're maybe not giving the right priority? That's the way I view it, and we should make observations which they can then take back with us. So just as Councillor Davison raised the question about charitable trusts, that's something that I'm sure the officers will take back. On planning, I take your perspective that nothing has changed. I'm frankly not sure that I would expect much to change when we're in the midst of the transformation. But again, if you think, hold on, there should have been change, you should maybe articulate why, and we can then make that observation to officers.
Okay.
So I hope that helps.
It does help.
Thanks.
So I would observe that our mitigating factors don't seem to be making any change. I think maybe we need more.
Could you suggest, and are we allowed to suggest another one, or
I think we are allowed to suggest what
the mitigating circumstances, which you may be a good suggestion. I don't know.
Yeah,
I suppose we're allowed to do that, right?
Yes. If I may, through you, Chair, what you've seen here and what you're seeing from your previous meetings is the framework of control operating.
Yeah.
So the key, I think, the question again, I wouldn't be so presumptuous to suggest what you want to think, but one of the questions I would be thinking of is, so is the framework of risk management and control operating in a way that you regard to be effective? One of those things to consider is the committee on, are you seeing and have a good picture of the organisation's risk profile? So as officers, what we do is we pull together the risk registers. They are in line with our methodology and strategy, which is these are the things that are outside of our appetite. So by definition, if it's on here, there's a live concern. We don't list on this risk register the things that are controlled. So your sample that you're seeing are the things that are inverted commas bad, worse than we would like them to be. Those sorts of questions are around: is this operating as you intended it to be when you scrutinise and looked at the strategy, and is it giving you assurance that we know where the risks are, and is there anything you're concerned about? So perhaps you're very welcome, as you know, to make observations to the executive. So this report doesn't make its way to the executive. It's going in April, and so any observations made here today will be presented to the executive, and they can reflect on them accordingly. And one thing I would add as well is the Centre for Governance and Scrutiny. They produce quite useful briefings on that distinction between the audit committee's role and the overview and scrutiny committee's role, and how that differs. Because it's I guess you could regard it as slightly blurred in instances, but it is distinct. I'm very happy to share that after this.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Clarity, because it is quite useful. If I can just wrap this up with two observations of my own. One on SR1, where under actions, pressure from other constituent authorities of West Surrey are likely to lead to a deficit budget overall. A baseline budget will be produced in March. Again, I think trying to reflect, I think the concerns of Waverley residents, but what the impact is going to be on that. Is there anything that Waverley can be doing to mitigate that risk?
I can provide a short intro of what I think Joe might want to come in. Just to note, thank you, Chair, that the papers for the West Surrey Joint Committee meeting on Friday were published last week. There's an update on the implementation plan. There is some info on the finances. So the 151s from all the constituent councils have been doing some work to develop that baseline. That was a request that came out of one of the joint committee meetings. In terms of what the council can do, I would probably have to pass over to Joe. Maybe able to add a bit more info. Joe, did you catch that bit?
Yeah, so just to confirm, the question was, what can we do to help mitigate financial instability of the wider West Surrey?
Yes, it was obviously you are looking to sort of the future budgets for the Unitary Council, and that may or may not have implications, perhaps adverse implications for Waverley residents and the borough. I'm just the question I have is, as a Waverley Council, are there additional risk mitigants or actions that we can be taking or are taking to reduce the risk of a budget that has significant adverse impacts upon our residents?
So we have been working, so the Section 151s have been working over the past month on understanding what the baseline position will be for West Surrey. And I think for councillors, that would be to make sure that you understand that position, that you've read the paper, that you understand that position, and if you've got any questions to feed into the process. That would be my starting point. Okay. We are aware that it's going to be a challenging situation. It is a baseline at the moment. Officers have challenged a number of different assumptions, and that will be continuing over the next couple of months.
Right. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate this is ongoing and changing probably by the day, but I think I want to register. I think that's a concern that we probably all share. My other question, and I think either Catherine or Luke, on SR2 local government reorganisation, have to be implemented a detailed LGR risk register be managed by the Transformation and Collaboration Programme Board. Is that risk register something that is available for this committee to look at, or available publicly?
I'm happy to take that. So yeah, the risk register, it was actually discussed at the corporate leadership board meeting on Tuesday. Yeah. So it's in the process of being refined in terms of the framing of some of those risks. But I'm very happy to pick that request up with the relevant assistant director for transformation and collaboration.
If you could, I mean, obviously we're not necessarily commenting on that, but I think it would give us additional assurance the way the risks are being managed.
As part of those 3 risks, which are all about LGR.
Yeah, they're all kind of interrelated.
I'm happy to take that request.
Can I just ask briefly on one on OR3, which is the capacity and resilience of the planning services? And I know this has been a worrying thing, and the planning department doing a great job. So, but I know it has been a worry for quite a number of years. But the description says at the end, it says in Waverley, over reliance on expensive external contractors coupled with less revenues from PPAs is placing a high budgetary pressure on the service and corporately. So, and then it says the mitigation is to negotiate hard on planning performance agreements from I imagine that's from the developers, isn't it? I'd imagine. But why don't we just allocate more money, budgetary, in the budget to the planning department for staffing? And you know what I mean? And that seems to be an easier fix than trying to raise revenue from the planning department. Why can't you just do it the other way around? If you're trying to fix this thing, why don't you fix it at the not at the revenue side, but at the cost side? So you put more money into the staffing element of it and the recruitment element of it, and that would take that pressure off, because you're trying to do it through revenue, I imagine, right? Yeah, and that seems a bit the wrong way around it in this kind of. But I could be wrong, but you know. Sorry.
Okay, I think an observation.
It's just an observation. I love that when I
take
see.
Away.
Yeah.
Obviously, just approve the budget. So.
Yes, I know, but you know, it's quite clearly stated. Like say, it's budgetary pressure on it.
Yeah. So, Councillor Beeman, can I just bring in Catherine?
Yeah, just in response to your observation, so when I did have a conversation with the assistant director in this area, I think one of the key things was that it was just very difficult to actually find kind of suitably experienced contract planners or just planners in general. So it's an issue kind of across the board in terms of in planning itself, whereby recruiting permanent staff is very challenging at the moment, just in terms of the lack of kind of experienced planners coming through. So that seemed to be one of the kind of key issues. so that even if there was potentially increased budget, from what I had, understood from that conversation anyway, was that it was just a very difficult market at the moment. So that was kind of like one of the key issues. But I can also, always try and follow up with the AD for planning if that's helpful as well. But hopefully that sheds a bit of light on some of the issues in that area.
Thank you.
Luke, Councillor Beeman was, is that just to follow up on this point?
Just a supplementary to add as well. So there's, as the risk description, as you pulled out, Councillor Moan frames it too, there is a policy dimension to this as well, and around the lack of sort of housing land supply. So in instances where authorities position that Waverley's in, we don't have that, due to that pressure, due to the change in the national planning policy framework, that increase in speculative developments creates there's an incentive for developers to go for speculative, which creates the attendant increase in workload, and there's less of an incentive to engage in planning performance agreements, which is perhaps usually used as a means for a more collaborative based approach between the LPA and developers. So it's an issue at both ends in that respect. We're very happy we can take an action to, if the committee's minded, to seek a more fulsome update from the Assistant Director for Planning.
We know it's an issue, right? So,
Councillor Beeman.
Yeah, a specific issue at the moment is that I noticed that the number of planning applications that can probably seem to be, they seem to be drifting through at a slower speed than usual. And the jungle drums tell me there is a problem in processing application. Is that right? Or are you aware of that? Or am I talking rubbish?
Through you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Beeman. I'm not aware of issues in processing applications. You do tend to find that planning applications are a useful proxy measure for economic health and performance.
Mortgage rates on development, right?
So perhaps, and again, it's me speculating. I'm very happy to seek.
Maybe an ONS matter coming up in the KPI, so I suspect.
Right. It's just that it's removed farming. I've noticed the number of applications, which are farm applications, drops.
Okay.
Good members. I think that's been a fairly comprehensive discussion on the risk register. A particular thanks to the officers and the fact that we have the register now, and I think we're using it because it's helping direct our questions, and I thank you all for your responses. So could I ask the committee just to note this updated register, and we've obviously got a number of observations that will appear in the minutes. Thank you very much. Thank you, Catherine, and thank you, Luke.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll now change hats, metaphorically speaking, and Neil, I think you've got the internal audit, the charter, and the plan at 26, 27. Would you that briefly like to go through any salient points? I think you should assume that the read for the report, but any particular things that you want to pull out?
Great, sir. So as I say, this presents both the internal audit charter and the internal audit plan for 26-27. Taking the internal audit charter first, and that's on pages 71 to 90 of your packs. There's a requirement within the global internal audit standards in the UK public sector, which are the standards that we have to comply with as an internal audit provider, that we produce an internal audit charter. In a nutshell, its purpose is to outline the internal audit mandate, our kind of position within the organisation and our roles and responsibilities. So it's quite a challenging document to make exciting for you, but I think it does provide quite a useful framework of the governance in which we work as a kind of an external internal audit provider for you. There have been no changes to the charter since it was approved by committee last year, but I'm more than happy to take any questions on the charter if there are any.
Any questions from members? I just would like to, if I got it right, this takes us through to vesting day.
Yeah.
So after vesting day, it's going to be another audit committee effectively that you or whoever may be doing it will be reflected. What happens to audits that you're midway through, or that you've commenced or you've already reported on, but then there are outstanding items after vesting day?
Yeah. So no, it's a fair question. No, hopefully I'll answer a little bit in the plan when I talk about next year's plan and the timing that we've got for that. But essentially, next year we're going to have to deliver all of our assurance work by the end of January at the absolute latest. So we can bring our annual conclusion to this committee before vesting day. So it'll come to this committee in March next year as opposed to its usual place in June, July.
Yeah.
So that will kind of contextualise and help inform the final annual governance statement for this year for Waverley as an organisation.
Right.
If we're not the internal audit provider for Surrey West, we'll, as with any partner that moves away, we'll kind of fully cooperate with the new incoming internal auditors to pass over all of our kind of documentation and those outstanding actions so they can be considered by the new internal auditors in the new organisation.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I hope it will be as seamless the transition from your perspective as possible.
Seems a massive job. So each one of the, and is that like is that part of the, sorry, Luke, is that part of the structural change order that each individual borough during that shadow unity year will create will have an internal audit of all their processes, and they will hand that back over to, as you know, all 11 things. We'll all hand them all over and say, here you go, here's 11 audit things. Thank you very much. Is that part of that? Is that something which they've done when they've done other unitaries, or is it all just piecemeal as it goes along?
I may be able to help to a degree, because in Surrey West we provide for 5 of the 6 existing districts and boroughs.
Cool.
So certainly for those 5, we'll follow that due process that I've just explained.
Okay, and that's so you'll be on top of that element from both sides looking at it, and you'll have different teams working on it, then an overseeing of the organisation. Yeah, that seems to make perfect sense.
So not hearing any additional questions on the charter. Neil, do you want to just talk us through the plan and questions that members may have?
Certainly, thank you, Chairman. So yeah, this second paper presents the proposed internal audit plan for 26-27, which, as we say, takes the authority through to vesting day. Planning followed a similar approach to prior years. So that includes a review of the Council's risk register, key documents and policies across the organisation, in addition to discussions with senior management. And that's alongside our own risk assessment as well. As part of planning this year, we did also facilitate a meeting with the respective Section 151s from the other districts and boroughs that make up Surrey West, that we provide those internal audit services to, just to see if there was any potential or opportunities for synergies across those plans that would also look to benefit the new organisation once created. I think it's worthy of note, you'll see detailed within the plan, there is a contingency there for LGR, and that's to provide any kind of critical friend or advisory role that the organisation may wish to use us for. And when I talked about those areas of synergy across the various organisations that we provide for in Surrey West, I think that's probably where some of those themes will really be drawn out as we kind of progress through what is going to be, without doubt, a really, really challenging year. I think it's important as well to note that our assurance work, as I say, will need to be completed by January. Those tighter timescales could create additional capacity issues for the officers within the organisation as they battle with these forward timelines, LGR plus their business as usual. So I don't underestimate that challenge. We've got to step up to the mark to ensure that we deliver as well. But the plan has been through corporate leadership board. It's been agreed by our officers, so they feel that they're able to commit to that at the moment. But again, I think as well, it's really important to recognise that it is a plan. As at today, it is a fluid, flexible document. There's going to be significant challenges throughout the year, and the plan will be agile to respond to any new emerging risks, and any changes or additions or removals from the plan will be brought through this committee for approval, as well as part of the progress report that you receive at each of your meetings.
Good. And Neil, I would hope, and in the unlikely event that you find yourself in conflict with officers over the priority or whatever of an audit, that you can feel that you can come to this committee.
Thank you very much. That's much appreciated. It probably is just worth saying as well that officers have kind of ramped up that support as well, with Khalil now as kind of a key contact, ably supported through Joe's assurance that we do get that support. But very much appreciate it.
And I believe it to be unlikely event. Joe, I see you have a hand up.
I was just really coming in on exactly the same point. A few months ago, we looked at the update report that Neil brought and identified there was areas where we could do better. And we've put a plan in place. We have a team of officers that will make sure that officers within the council feed into the update report that Neil presents.
Good. Good. Thank you, Joe. Members, any particular comments on these?
Just one, Chair. I mean, it all looks great, and absolutely, I'm sure you'll do a brilliant job, Neil, as you always do. What is the impact of trying to merge IT systems? Is that not going to happen? Is there no plan for that to happen in the shadow unitary year, or is that all going to be shelved off and not actually happen until year 1 or year 3 or whichever? Is that because I imagine if you're going to try and do it during that shadow unitary year, it's going to be a bit that is a risk you would not be able to account for. So I don't know. What's the plan for that?
I mean, I think it's going to be very much down to the work streams that are working within those shadow authorities of how they take that forward. I cannot underestimate the level of complexity and risk that involves in not only bringing those systems and services together, but also the kind of cyber risk of kind of
because you've identified cyber risk as the one thing, right?
Yeah,
as part of that.
I think the assurance in this is where we're working with colleagues at Surrey County as well, to understand what level of assurance they've got on that kind of working group in those work streams, and potentially, if it's not coming from them, how do we get in to get some assurance around that?
Because that's a big thing. I don't know when you were saying big for Lil, but I can imagine just the accounting system, not housing or any of the other ones, but or the internal email system, but the finance system.
Yeah.
You've all got, I don't know, there'll be 11 different ones, maybe, well, there'll certainly be 7 different ones, perhaps. Are they still going to be, I suppose, siloed for another year or 2? Well, are you going to try and converge them all on vesting day?
Unfortunately, that's part of the work stream that's been led by Pedro. So the idea is, obviously, there's an IT work stream. At present, quite a few of the authorities use Businessful. So the idea is we're trying to use a complementary system. However, there's opportunities to use better systems that we can implement cheaper, but still deliver the same sort of functionality and benefits that we all need as an authority. Obviously, cost is one of the issues, and timing.
Yeah.
So obviously, in terms of that, Pedro leading that side will include and consider the internal audit controls and means as part of that process.
Okay. But there's not like a deadline where you, okay, this is going to happen on that day.
No.
And there's going to be a rush to get to that date, you know, and there is, because vesting date's not going to change.
No.
But the system changes don't all have to happen on vesting day. I don't think that's the case, is it?
No, I don't.
They can happen in the future.
I think there's learning from a number of organisations that have been through it. Some are 2, 3, 4 years down the line and still have.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to reassure. Yeah, I think that's the case. Yeah.
Thank you.
Cool. Thank you.
There's a couple of comments from me. I like you, I was pleased to see the cyber security. I know that's an issue that we've raised and Councillor Davison's raised that is in that plan. Likewise, the community asset transfers.
Yeah, it's good to see
I
that.
think with our Waverley hats on, and some of us may be parish or town councillors, but you know, it's important that we get that right. From Waverley, not just from internal governance, but also the accounting and value for money aspect. So pleased to see that. Likewise, pleased to see the follow up on water safety. That was something that you know we flagged before. A source of concern, a question I've put out, is on page 12. You've got the table of engagements that you would have performed if additional sort of services were available. And the first one there is health and safety. And sort of raised an eyebrow because, you know, health and safety being pushed back a bit. Are you and our officers comfortable that decision to, as it were, defer that or put it into sort of League 2 is the right decision? I wouldn't want to find that we're compromising health and safety.
Yeah, I mean, I've taken our assurance to a degree from the kind of deep dive we've taken on some of the regulatory stuff, like the water, like the asbestos, like the electricity that are all incorporated, and we've got the kind of damp and mould in this year in respect of Aiden's law. So that will probably be more focused on the kind of corporate health and safety side of things rather than the external facing. We will obviously, as we, you know, with this listing particularly, but more generally, we will keep a barometer on that, and we'll continue to liaise with the service areas just to establish exactly what other sources of assurance are coming in there.
I think that would be a good thing to keep a set barometer. And I know you've got there's a contingency element if needed.
Absolutely,
you might need to use that. I don't want that being pushed to and forgotten.
Sure,
but clearly it isn't. Thank you. Any further questions from members? Then could we please note and approve both this internal audit charter and the internal audit plan? Neil, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Noted and approved.
Thank you. That takes us now to the actual indicative audit plan, but for the current year, 25-26, and over to, I think, Joe and Grant Thornton. Thank you for your patience in being here to the bitter end.
Thank you, Chair. Joe, did you want to introduce, or are you happy for me to go straight into it? I'll take that.
I'm more than happy. You're more than qualified to go straight into it. Please do.
Okay. Thank you very much. Just to add that my colleague Alicia Noor Ezene is also joining and observing the meeting today. So the indicative audit plan you have in front of you, we've termed it indicative simply because whilst we have started the audit plans planning in January, at the time we issued the report, that work wasn't complete. We have agreed arrangements in place to complete the work and do some early testing later this month, and a timeline for completing the planning and early testing is by the end of this month. So just to assure committee members, the plan will be that once that's completed, I will email both Joe as Section 151 officer and the chair to confirm if there's any changes to the audit plan that I'm presenting this evening. And if there is any significant change, I will share an updated plan at that stage. However, in terms of the work we've undertaken, I'm not anticipating that there'll be any material change to this plan. In terms of the key items to draw to the committee's attention, key areas are the significant risk areas that we're undertaking. And the significant risk areas, just to remind committee, are those areas that we apply special audit considerations. And the three areas that we've highlighted within the plan include management override of control, valuation of land and buildings, including council dwellings, and valuation of pension liabilities. Whilst there are no significant changes to international auditing standards this year, there is one new amendment to land and buildings valuation that's come into place from 25-26. So our work will again pick up on that to review how the council is complying with those revised revisions. In terms of our planning for materiality, we've determined materiality at group level at 2.2 million and for Waverley at 2 million. And on receipt of the financial statements later in the year, we will revisit that materiality to determine the threshold for our test in terms of the work we would undertake on your financial statements. Very briefly, in terms of the value for money work, so our planning to date has not identified any significant value for money risk, but however, we'll continue to keep this on the review up to the date that I issue my opinion. In light of the conversations earlier on around best value, just very briefly, in terms of the value for money focus that we would undertake, we cover three main areas, which is financial sustainability, and that's looking at your finances and dealing with funding gaps and financial pressures. We look at your governance and looking at that you have proper decision-making and oversight structures in place. And also looking at your risk, how your risk are being managed, and early conversation around your risk register has, again, been helpful in informing that as well. And the third area is around improving economy, efficiency and effectiveness. And we look at in those areas around services being reviewed for improvements using benchmarking as appropriate, and performance data are being used as well. As your auditor, we will assess if your systems and governance are in place to deliver best value as well, and that leadership have and manager actively monitoring those performance costs. And also we review services that have been received and improved over time. From our review, we produce one of our reports to yourselves, which will be the auditor's annual report. And within there, based on the findings, we'll either issue, if we identify significant weaknesses, or make improvement recommendations to your value for money arrangements, or in exceptional circumstances, could issue statutory recommendations. In very rare extreme situations, could lead to a public interest in report. But I must stress that those last two options I'm not anticipating. That's likely to be based on the work planning work we've undertaken to date. In terms of the time frame, so as I mentioned earlier, we plan to finish our planning and early testing by the end of this month. And then the field work on your financial statements will start shortly after we receive your draft financial statements towards the end of June. And the plan would be for us to undertake the field work between June and mid-September. Final couple of things, so just to highlight for committee, the scale fee set by PSAA for the 25-26 audit is £177,000. And I will stop there and take any questions from the committee.
Thank you. Any questions from members if I can just begin, on page 3 of your report, the backstop. I just want to the last sort of couple of sentences beginning. Our objective is to establish a pathway to recovery, and that last bit. I was a little puzzled by that, and was just wondering, dare I say, was that a cut and paste from another council? Because I didn't think that Waverley was in a recovery mode.
You're absolutely correct, and apologies. We should have taken that.
If that could be removed, that would be appreciated.
Yes, we will do that.
And you've obviously got the deadline of 30th November that you're going to work to. I hope that is one that you feel you can achieve. It's obviously ambitious, but I'm sure you get full support from officers. I was also, I read the report. We've talked about value for money. You've heard this committee reference both community asset transfers and indeed for valuation issues on 69 High Street and others. I think those are things that I would ask you just to sort of note in your, as you proceed with your audit. And there will be a massive interest to us when you come through. Otherwise, I thought it was. I hope it's not ambitious. That's all. The timeline. I think last year we had Joe. Maybe I was going that the pensions liability, which is somewhat outside Waverley's control, held us up. I guess it's still outside our control. I'm not sure how that will pan out, but I admire the ambition.
Yes, thank you very much. And yes, we'll continue to liaise with our colleagues, the pension fund auditors at Surrey, just to ensure that the information that we need to complete the work is received timely, and we'll keep Joe and the team updated on progress on that.
Yeah. Joe.
It's connected with the audit, the external audit, but it's really just to offer this committee some, if we can do any additional training or support, so that committee is really informed and confident that they're in their knowledge of what they're looking at. So that's something that's going to come from the finance team, that we can deliver it in an informal setting, so that you've got absolute clarity on what you're looking at, if the committee would be interested.
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah. And especially if we get some if we get new members in May, we may have 1 or 2 new members.
I think that would be helpful.
So we'll plan for something, towards the end of May. So it's still relevant when you're looking, and we can do update sessions. It's easier if we do smaller sessions, maybe a couple of them, because it's quite a technical area. But we just want to make sure that everybody's fully informed.
I think that would be very helpful and appreciated. Clearly, I think we all might be slightly diverted in early May, but post May it would be much appreciated. Thank you. I had one other, just a quick question for Grant Thornton. Am I correct in thinking you are the current auditors for all of the other boroughs within West Surrey?
That is correct. So we audit all of the districts, and except for the county, which is audited by a different firm.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably not for this committee, but I'm sure I would hope, therefore, there's a level of commonality in approach to your audits that will help the Unitary Council go forward. I believe the county is Ernst & Young, isn't it?
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah, but otherwise they're all Grant Thornton, which I think is helpful. Members, Councillor Davison first.
Or would you like
ladies first?
No, sorry, I was just telling the.
You're pointing to me. Right. My recollection is that pensions and the liabilities there was an issue last year.
Yes.
And it was an issue because Surrey were being somewhat tardy in responding. If that's the case, could you assure us that you are taking steps as early as possible to get Surrey to move off their bottoms?
Right. I wouldn't use the same phrasing in terms of. However, what we are doing, and which we did towards the end last time round, is having that early dialogue with the pension fund auditors to ensure that if there is any delays in terms of providing the assurance that we need, that for a number of the districts where we're undertaking early audit work, like yourselves, that could they look to prioritize the work around that? And that's the conversation that we're in the process of having to try and make sure that the timing works better for this year and an improvement on last year. So we are in dialogue to try and make that happen.
I would certainly like to see us being able to repeat your excellent performance together with our finance team's performance in getting the accounts audited and signed off well ahead of any of the other boroughs in Surrey. We are the leaders, and I'd like us to continue to be just that.
I totally agree.
Joe, I'm sure you'll support making that happen.
Absolutely. Both myself and Elisa are very much geared up to trying to make sure that we get it done as quickly as we can. And I'm sure you have a lot more busy. The finance team will have quite a lot on their hand with LGR. So the sooner we can get out of their head so that they can focus on that, the better.
I think, because you've got so many more worrying boroughs to look at than ourselves.
Yes. You don't have to comment on that. Thank you for that. Thank you, Councillor Davison. So could I ask the committee please to note? Sorry, Councillor Barkley.
Thank you. So earlier you referred to sort of value for money, and under that there were 3 sections. So financial sustainability, governance and risk management, and then efficiency and effectiveness, I think. So 4 actually. So what is the format, please, of sort of value for money assessments, and where are they, and who carries them out, and what triggers are carrying out, please?
So in terms of the value for money arrangements, that's set out by the National Audit Office, and there's a set criteria in terms of the areas that we look at. And where part of our work identifies any significant value for money risk, there are 2 different ways we can address that, either as part of the ongoing work that we're doing within the reports that we produce, or if we think it's significant enough, we carry out what we could call a deep dive, but that requires approval from PSAA in terms of whether there's a specially commissioned review of a particular area where those issues are. So in terms of the work we undertake, it's done alongside the financial accounts audit. So Alicia will be doing that work in terms of the value for money work, and we'll produce at the end of that the work a annual auditor's report that focuses on the value for money areas. And just to clarify, it is 3 specific areas: financial sustainability, governance, and improving economic efficiency and effectiveness. The risk management you talked about is included within the governance section.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for that. So members, can you please note the audit plan? And Garth Thornton, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. That leads us to our final and recurring agenda item, which is the ongoing annual work programme, which you've got there with. This is really what we look at, and we will be looking at in June. So it's just our chance to give any comments or requests on that. You can see June has quite a heavy agenda, so I think we have to bear that in mind. I'm conscious we had a very valuable but quite lengthy discussion on the risk register this time around. I think we want to make sure there's room for the other things as well. On that, I don't want to not have a discussion on the risk register, but there are other matters there that need consideration. Members, any points? Neil, did you?
Sorry, Chairman, if I may. One thing that doesn't seem to be on there at the moment, and I apologise, that's my bad. Is the annual audit conclusion that usually comes in June to help inform the annual governance statement. So its timing is quite important.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
I think it's 2 meetings, I think, really.
Chair, if it helps, the whistleblowing policy can form part of the annual report, so you just have one.
I think if we can try and condense that, as Councillor Beamer said, if we think it's going to be too lengthy, we may have to go for 2. I just note also, I know we've got the annual governance report is external audit, the annual governance statement is internal, they are different items. I think we'll take that as something to be reviewed, whether we need to go for two
Well,
meetings.
I will send out, now we've had this meeting, I will send out a list, send out an email to all these officers to say, these are the items that we have on our work programme. Are they still planning to come, so that we can take a informed decision as to how we proceed?
Okay, thank you.
I was just thinking it could be a reserve date, could it be a reserve date just in case? I don't. For everybody else's diary get booked up.
Yep, we can look at a reserve date.
I think that may make sense if you can suggest some reserve date, because some people may be going on holiday, who knows?
Yeah, I'll look for a reserve date and
just put something in the diary, we don't have to use it.
Yeah,
exactly.
No, that's fine.
A good idea. Thank you. Okay, members, officers, I think that draws the meeting to conclusion at 9:46. 8:46.
8:46.
Thank goodness.
No, the budget meeting.
Gentlemen and ladies, thank you very much. Joe, Adi, and others still on camera who are off camera. Thank you very much for your attendance. Thank you. And we wish you a good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
All committee members. Working against the investment in 69. And